Well. It seems that a recent Supreme Court decision on affirmative action is sending some shockwaves through the DEI landscape. That's right, diversity, equity, inclusion is, well, kind of running for the hills. So hold tight, because there's some implications of that ruling that could affect many things, including, well, how the Oscars are handed out. Because that inclusion criteria that has been such a minefield, well, it's about to get a lot more dense. It could also turn the annual self-congratulatory event into a series of lawsuits. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, hang on. Here we go.
That's racist.
Now, on June 29th, the Supreme Court put its foot down on a ruling on racial preferences in college admissions, saying they're absolutely a no-go zone. And now the entertainment industry, and many other industries, as a matter of fact, are bracing themselves for a possible reverse discrimination showdown.
It's incredibly racist.
Super racist.
With so-called diversity initiatives under the microscope. Legal eagles are squawking, and companies of all stripes in Hollywood may find themselves caught in, well, quite a bit of crossfire. While the Supreme Court's decision is legally limited to the ivory towers of higher education for the time being, it's got everybody in Tinseltown quite nervous about their wildly discriminatory practices and exclusionary DEI programs. That's right, folks, Hollywood might think twice before going all in on what some consider bogus diversity and exclusionary inclusion efforts, fearing that, well,
that's racist.
They might be on a slippery slope of a reverse discrimination accusation, which, to be fair, they have already been practicing for far too long. And of course, as I mentioned, Hollywood's not the only one that has been heavy-handed in this area, and I think a lot of businesses are terrified. But that's not all here. Our dear friends over at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, well, they have their own exclusionary inclusion standards for the holy grail of awards, the Best Picture Oscar. A film needs to check off diversity boxes in 2 of 4 areas to even be considered to make the cut. Now that sounds like it could be innocent and innocuous, right? But hold on to your popcorn, folks, because there's a lot of grumbling now, and it's coming from almost every direction. And to be fair, Hollywood has its share of bigwigs who think that the inclusion standards are nothing but a nauseating mess and outright discriminatory in their own right. In fact, for example, Oscar winner Richard Dreyfus is one of the loudest voices against it, proclaiming that it's an art, and no one should be telling artists what's moral and what's not. And it's widely reported that he's not alone in his objections, but those voices tend to hide in the shadows for fear of, well, never working again.
It's racist.
Oh, so tolerant, aren't we, Hollywood? Some even are starting to wonder at this point if the Academy's commitment to DEI is wavering, especially after a few of the top officials, who happen to be black,
Is that racist? That depends.
decided to take their leave. In response, the Academy's top brass wrote a love letter to their members, swearing that they're committed to promoting divisive diversity and exclusionary inclusion as part of their neo-Marxist agenda that is, well, pervasively infesting California as a whole. I'm sorry, my California friends.
Sorry, not sorry.
And with those words in the wind, all of those love letters, all of those wonderful statements coming out of the Academy, could somebody actually challenge the Academy standards in court? Well, of course they can. Many are actually suggesting that it's a long shot that anyone would be so brazen, because no one wants to tango with the backlash a production company would face from indoctrinated power brokers. But hey, where there's a will, there's a way. And the Supreme Court's ruling could provide plenty of ammunition in the form of a legal precedent to those brave enough to take on the Academy's for those who could provide ammunition, more than enough ammunition, in the form of a legal precedent to those brave enough to take on the Academy's diversity initiative. And given that the justices hinted racial preferences are on more than just shaky legal ground, oftentimes something like that is a suggestion in the ruling that there's an invitation for similar cases to make their way all the way up to the highest bench in the land. You see, many companies were already ditching any race mentions from their DEI programs before this ruling, noticing how things were shaking out for those efforts, and that's all a part of avoiding lawsuits from folks that are crying foul about discrimination, which is quite obvious. Pfizer and Amazon have already been served with suits claiming that their programs exclude certain groups based on race, which is an extreme no-no under employment law already. Even a conservative group founded by Stephen Miller has been on the warpath against Fortune 500 firms, calling out their hiring practices. That's not good. Of course, we can't forget about the recent removal of nearly all of the major studios' DEI chiefs, starting with Disney's Latondra Newton, which basically kind of opened the floodgates to a dismissal of people who were probably overreaching the, well, framework of that position. Now, DEI initiatives these days have always been suspect as they favor immutables over merit, talent, and qualifications. So it's not surprising that Hollywood's moving to, well, an entirely different direction, because who wants to be caught in the crossfire, as I mentioned, of any of these discrimination complaints? You're just setting yourself up for massive losses, and Hollywood can't afford that right now. For the very short term, Oscars inclusion standards seem to be safe. The question is, for how long? They're either easy to meet or not, according to Hollywood, and Hollywood has a leftward lean at the moment that may just keep the Academy's criteria untouchable until they're sued. And as we wait for the next blockbuster ruling here, we can rest assured that the spotlight on divisive diversity and exclusionary inclusion practices are just going to be in the entertainment industry, and that's not fading away anytime soon. But hey, what do you think? Do you think that we'll see a discontinuation of a lot of these very heavy-handed moves to force some kind of quota on an industry that should basically only be fed in the service of art itself? Do you think that somebody's going to sue one of these major studios and possibly the Academy itself? I think that's likely to happen. In fact, I would almost guarantee it. Somebody's going to have more money than sense and they're going to go right at them. But hey, we'll see. And finally, do you think that those kinds of discrimination policies should be attacked at every level, regardless whether it's Hollywood or in any form of business? I absolutely think they should be, and I think everybody should be held accountable for, well, discrimination. I don't know about you. Anyway, please, like I said, leave those comments down below and we'll have a conversation about it. I know this is a hot button subject, but hey, we'll be respectful and kind to each other, just as I was during the performance of this video. And on that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others. Wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. And until next time...
That's racist.